Let's hit the road. America has a category of highway that does not appear in the travel magazine features, not because these roads are secret, not because they are unmarked, but because what makes them significant is not photogenic. It is logistical. It is the distance between fuel stops. It is the elevation at which your engine starts working harder than your cooling system expects. It is the number of hours between you and the nearest tow truck capable of reaching you. This is a countdown of the 10 most remote roads in the United States, not ranked by scenery, not ranked by reputation, ranked by service gaps, recovery distance, and documented isolation. The roads that assume you arrive prepared, or do not let you arrive back easily. Number 10, US Route 50, Nevada. In 1986, Life magazine called it the loneliest road in America. That label stuck. It also became a tourism marketing strategy, which should tell you something about how remote Nevada learned to monetize its own emptiness. Here is what the bucket list articles leave out. Route 50 crosses central Nevada for over 300 miles. Service gaps between fuel stations regularly exceed 70 to 100 miles. The route crosses multiple mountain ranges, which means your fuel consumption is not flat. Elevation changes affect efficiency. A tank that gets you 80 miles at sea level may get you 60 miles climbing through the Toyabe Range. Here is what earns it a spot on this list. The road is fully paved and still patrolled. That keeps it at number 10. Remote, but recoverable. The infrastructure is thin, not absent. You can make a mistake on Route 50 and survive it with planning. Further up this list, planning only reduces your margin for error. It does not eliminate it. That is why Route 50 is number 10. Number 9, Utah State Route 12, Escalante to Bryce Corridor. State Route 12 is frequently cited as one of the most scenic highways in the country. The National Scenic Byways Program designated it an all-American road. Those designations measure beauty. They do not measure the Hogsback. The Hogsback is a narrow ridge segment near Boulder Mountain where the road sits on an exposed spine of rock. Drop-offs exist on both sides. Shoulder width is minimal. The road climbs to sections exceeding 9,000 feet near Boulder Mountain. And at those elevations, fog and ice arrive without the weather patterns you would expect at lower altitude. Winter icing can form with minimal warning. Emergency pull-out access in the canyon transition segments is limited. Here is what every road trip listicle leaves out. The combination of elevation, narrow ridge geometry, and limited exit options means that a mechanical failure in the wrong segment traps you in a location where standard tow equipment cannot safely operate. Recovery is not impossible. It is expensive and slow. That is why State Route 12 is number 9. Number 8, Denali Highway, Alaska. 135 miles of gravel road between Paxson and Cantwell. That is the Denali Highway, not the road to Denali National Park. That is a different route. This is older infrastructure, built in 1957 as the original park access road, then largely abandoned when the park's highway opened in 1972. Here is what the brochure leaves out. The road is effectively closed in winter. Year-round maintenance does not exist in any practical sense. The gravel surface produces washboard conditions that destroy standard vehicle suspension over sustained mileage. Tire failure rates on this road are not anecdotal. They are documented by Alaska state travel advisories that recommend carrying at minimum 2 spare tires, not 1. Cell coverage is near zero across the corridor. Recovery infrastructure does not exist in any meaningful density. If your vehicle fails at the midpoint of the Denali Highway, your options are waiting or walking. Neither is comfortable. The road still sees seasonal traffic, which is what keeps it at number 8 rather than higher. True isolation on this list begins where even tourism stops. That is why the Denali Highway is number 8. Number 7, Hole in the Rock Road, Utah. 55 to 60 miles of unpaved desert access road into Grand Staircase Escalante National Monument. The Bureau of Land Management maintains this corridor. Maintains is a relative term. Washboard surface conditions on Hole in the Rock Road are severe enough that standard rental vehicles are functionally prohibited. The fine print on most major rental agreements in Utah excludes unpaved BLM roads entirely. That is not a legal technicality. That is the rental companies calculating the actual failure rates. Flash flooding in the surrounding canyon system can cut off exit routes without warning. There's no drainage infrastructure capable of managing significant precipitation events. The road does not flood because it is low-lying. It floods because the terrain around it funnels water directly onto the corridor with no alternative path. No fuel along the entire route. No services. Minimal shade. The limestone surface produces sharp debris that punishes standard passenger tires. Here is what earns it a spot on this list. The combination of surface damage risk, flash flood exposure, and zero service presence means any single mechanical event converts a day trip into a multi-day logistical problem. That is why Hole in the Rock Road is number 7. Number 6, North Cascades Highway, Washington State Route 20. State Route 20 is closed for roughly 5 months of the year. The Washington State Department of Transportation closes Washington Pass due to avalanche risk, typically from late fall through early to mid-spring. The exact dates vary by snowpack. The closure is not negotiable. Here is what Instagram posts leave out. When the road is open, it presents separate hazards. Rockfall zones operate independently of weather. Wildfire closures have isolated sections of Route 20, even during summer months when the snow risk is zero. Cell coverage is limited across multiple valleys and alpine passes. The elevation at Washington Pass reaches approximately 5,477 feet, but the speed of weather transitions at that elevation exceeds what lower altitude driving prepares you for. The reason this road sits at number 6, and not higher, is that its isolation is seasonal and predictable. You can research the closure dates. You can plan around the rockfall zones. Remote logistics on this list become more severe when the isolation is not seasonal but permanent. Route 20 prepares you for what comes next. That is why the North Cascades Highway is number 6. Number 5, Beartooth Highway, Montana and Wyoming. The Beartooth Highway reaches 10,947 feet at Beartooth Pass. That makes it one of the highest paved roads in the United States by maximum elevation. The National Park Service manages access coordination with the Wyoming and Montana Departments of Transportation. The switchback count is in the hundreds. Each descent through those switchbacks places sustained stress on brake systems that most vehicle manufacturers do not design around for consumer vehicles. Brake fade at altitude is a documented risk. Snowstorms occur on the Beartooth in every calendar month, including July and August. That is not an exaggeration. That is the recorded weather history of the Beartooth Plateau. Here is what earns it a spot on this list. The combination of maximum elevation, sustained switchback braking, unpredictable snow at any point in the operating season, and regular full closure due to snowpack creates a road where mechanical stress and weather exposure are simultaneous risks rather than alternating ones. Seasonal closure keeps it from ranking higher. The permanence of isolation is reserved for roads further up this list. That is why the Beartooth Highway is number 5. Number 4, Nevada State Route 375, the extraterrestrial highway. The name comes from a 1996 Nevada state designation intended to capitalize on tourism interest, generated by the nearby Nevada Test and Training Range. The marketing worked. The road itself did not change. 98 miles of desert highway, no fuel stations along the central corridor. Traffic density outside of tourism concentration near the Rachel area is extremely low. The drive is monotonous by measurable definition. Monotony at highway speed produces documented fatigue risk. Night driving on State Route 375 compounds that risk with near total darkness and no road lighting infrastructure. Here is what the brochure leaves out. The tourist interest is geographically concentrated. Outside of the small cluster of attention near the Route 375 and Groom Lake Road intersection, the road is simply an empty Nevada state highway with the service presence of a county access road. Fuel miscalculation here is not embarrassing. It is a multi-hour problem in triple-digit heat. That is why State Route 375 is number 4. Number 3, the Dalton Highway, Alaska, Livingood to Cold Foot and beyond. 414 miles from Livingood Junction to Dead Horse at Prudhoe Bay. The Dalton Highway was built in 1974 to support construction and ongoing operations of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline System. It was not built for public use. Public access was legally restricted until 1995, and even now, the road functions primarily as a commercial truck corridor. The service gap between Cold Foot and the Arctic coast is approximately 240 miles. That is the longest service gap on any publicly accessible road in the United States by documented measurement. Adigan Pass through the Brooks Range reaches 4,739 feet. At that elevation, in Arctic conditions, weather severity operates outside the parameters most drivers have any reference point for. Extreme cold, mud season, ground ice, and sustained high winds are not seasonal exceptions on the Dalton. They are recurring operating conditions. Recovery response times due to distance from permanent settlements are measured in hours, not minutes. Here is what earns the Dalton a spot at number 3 rather than higher. It is an active industrial corridor. Truck traffic, however sparse, creates a base level of human presence that does not exist on the road at number 1. That presence does not make you safe. It makes you slightly less invisible. That is why the Dalton Highway is number 3. Number 2, the Dalton Highway north of Cold Foot. This is not a separate road. It is a distinction within the same 414-mile corridor because the northern segment of the Dalton operates under materially different conditions than the southern section and deserves separate classification. North of Cold Foot, the road is truck-dominated to a degree that makes standard passenger vehicles statistically anomalous. Fuel logistics become critical in a way that has no civilian equivalent in the lower 48 states. A miscalculation does not strand you near a population center. It strands you north of the Brooks Range, with extraction costs that can reach into the tens of thousands of dollars. Weather instability north of the range is categorically more severe than south of it. Rescue response capability at that distance from permanent settlement is limited by geography that does not negotiate with urgency. The number 2 position exists because administrative control, the pipeline corridor infrastructure, creates a floor of human presence. The road at number 1 has no such floor. That is why the northern Dalton is number 2. Number 1, Big Bend Ranch, State Park Roads, Texas. Big Bend Ranch is the largest state park in Texas. It covers over 300,000 acres of Chihuahuan desert. The road network within the park connects to one of the lowest density public highway systems in the continental United States. The nearest towns, capable of supporting a vehicle recovery operation, are measured in hours of additional driving, not minutes. Heat conditions in the Big Bend region regularly exceed 100 degrees Fahrenheit from late spring through early fall. At those temperatures, mechanical tolerance margins narrow sharply. Cooling systems, tire pressure, and brake performance all degrade faster than manufacturers rate them for sustained operation. The limestone road surface generates sharp debris. Tire punctures are not rare events, they are expected maintenance considerations. Cell service is effectively non-existent across the major road segments within the park. No fuel, no nearby services, no recovery infrastructure within practical reach. A breakdown in the interior of Big Bend Ranch does not generate a weight measured in hours. In summer, it generates a survival situation measured against heat exposure limits. Here is what earns it the number 1 position. Every other road on this list has a mitigating factor. Seasonal closure means predictable access. Industrial traffic means occasional human presence. Paved surface means reduced mechanical stress. Big Bend Ranch has none of those mitigating factors operating simultaneously. The isolation is permanent, not seasonal. The service absence is total. The heat margin is unforgiving. And the recovery distance is among the longest in the continental United States for a publicly accessible road network. That is why Big Bend Ranch is number 1. If you found this useful, smash that like button and subscribe to our channel so you do not miss our next one. Drop a comment below. Which of these are you brave enough to drive? Until next time, stay prepared, and we will see you on the road. And that wraps up our countdown of the 10 most remote roads in America. The pattern across all 10 is the same. Isolation is not defined by wilderness or scenery. It is defined by time. How long before help arrives? Whether the vehicle, the terrain, and the temperature give you enough of it. These roads are still on the map. That does not mean the map tells you everything you need to know before you drive them.